All right, how's it going? So, economy sucks, but we got to do something. True enough. So, and it's not necessarily that the economy sucks on every side at all times, necessarily, although I'm not an economist, but in terms of the average Joe right now in Western society, you're probably not feeling ecstatic, for the most part, about the current state of affairs economically, in terms of your purchasing power of the dollar, how much the average job pays, in terms of like your regular kind of job, not like an extreme comfortable job or anything like that, but like just average person stuff, okay? So anyway, it's that kind of thing where things suck and you might not want to like work at your job, and some people might try to encourage you to quit your job and find something else. Or some people might just like, one thing that's kind of puzzling is nowadays there's this idea, I might be getting this twisted or mixed up here, but there's this vibe sometimes on the internet where it's like people were fed up with their jobs so they quit, and maybe they just like go all out getting into fitness or something, diet and exercise or whatever. But it's not a thing that sounds like it directly replaces their income, at least not right away. So then it's like, okay, if you were struggling before at your normal person job or whatever, not making a whole lot of money, and you now quit that job, but you still need to live, then like, how are you affording to do that now without the job that you had? So it's kind of like there's this missing link somewhere, at least like when people talk kind of like this, it's like, it sounds like there's something missing, where it's like, how do you do it though? But like, how do you survive? How do you live? How do you eat though? Like, how do you make the money if you're not making the money anymore? Anyway, moving on. So there's that. Where is it going with this? Okay, but we got to do something. So, yeah, the economy sucks, but when it comes to what are we going to do about it, And I was looking in the mirror there. But anyway, what are we going to do about it? So, we got to do something, because you have to eat, you have to pay rent, you have to survive or whatever, whatever your circumstances look like. Maybe you're living at home and you don't really have to pay rent, or at least maybe you don't, maybe you do, or maybe it's more affordable because you're living at home. Whatever your arrangement is, you have your expenses. Like you probably have something you have to pay for, whether it's gas, whether it's car insurance, car payments, whether you buy supplements, I don't know, like whether you buy groceries, whether you don't, whether you live with your family and they do. There's probably at some point something that you either have to spend money on or want to spend money on. And so you have to make the money, right, to be able to do that. So, what are we going to do? What are you going to do, right? Because yes, things suck, potentially, depending on your sector of the economy that you're involved in or whatever. But what's the plan? Because you gotta do something. So what's the plan? So things might suck if you are in a retail job and you're making like not much money an hour, right? And maybe your work hours are not very much. But like by the mere fact of our complaining does not magically change the situation. I've probably done my share of complaining, but at the end of the day does not change my situation unless I complain about it on the internet and make money by complaining about it on the internet, which like maybe I haven't made money off of the complaining about it on the internet, but that's also not like a productive like overall thing. Like it feels almost immoral maybe to make money on the internet just by complaining about how much things suck in your own life, and only that. Or maybe I'm not saying this right. Maybe I'm not saying exactly what I'm trying to say here. But it's like if you just make money by talking about how much things suck and not contributing anything positive or productive, and you just make money off of like keeping the bad thing going, then is that really like that doesn't sound too great, of like a profession or of a thing to do. You know what I mean? Like it'd be better off to be like, hey, acknowledge the things that suck, maybe talk about why it sucks, the facts, whatever, but then leaving on a note of like, okay, but here's something you could do to try to change this, or that we could try to move forward in a positive way, because otherwise you just kind of keep feeding the doom spiral, and that's not really helpful. Even if it does make people feel better because they feel like validated in their negative thinking, but if all you do is validate your negative thinking, then like, where does that go? Does it make anything better, like in a real way? So anyway, if the things suck right now, which they might for you, if you're watching this, what are steps that could be taken to improve the situation? And this is like kind of some really basic internet bro advice, so this is not necessarily extremely helpful. But Alex Hormozi has talked about how we need to be reminded more often than we need to be taught. So just because I'm saying basic advice doesn't necessarily mean that it isn't good on some level. At the same time, just because I'm saying this doesn't mean that I am reliably taking this advice either. Like, I could probably take this advice more as well. I've went through kind of a burnt out phase of life over the last little bit, and different things happening, and et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, what are practical steps we could all take to improve our lives? So say we're in a job that doesn't pay very well. Is there any way that we could get into a higher paying job? Do we have to learn different skills to get this job? Is that worth it? Is this a job that we could see ourselves doing, or would like to do, would enjoy to do? Because that might also help with the quality of life, because you probably ideally want to hate your day job as least as possible. And then there's also the threat of like job replacement, whether it's by cheap foreign labor or whether it's by AI. So you might be thinking, okay, is this a job worth pursuing, or worth building my skills or my whatever towards getting hired in, if I'm just going to be replaced in a year by AI? That's also a risk and something worth considering. So you might want to think about what kinds of jobs. Nothing might be future-proof to an extent, but what is like giving me the best odds of success here, given where things are going or seem to be going? Because you might not know for certain, right? So for example, is this a human interaction, human kind of experience-based job, or is this like a completely, like, what's the best way to say it? I want to say rudimentary, but that might not be the best word. Is this a job where it's like I write code that requires just more like extreme logic in my thinking? Or is this a job that is based on the human experience and human interaction? Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but based on the current advancements of AI and technology and where it's going, it seems like, is it fair to say, I'll put it that way, is it fair to say that the more cold logical a job is, whether it's like, okay, code this piece of software, build or fabricate this part, stuff like that, is it fair to say that that's much more likely to be replaced by AI? Whereas, say, something like a social worker, and it's not that I'm the biggest fan of the general social working field, because there's a lot of the psychology stuff in there, and a lot of that might be crap, but moving on, I'm not going to get too big into that right now. But anyway, or is it like, being a restaurant server, again, not necessarily a high paying job depending on where you're at, but like, or, event planner, or someone that's hosting events or doing like some sort of experiential type thing, right? And it's not that art is safe from being replaced by AI either, because we see like image generation or graphic design or whatever you want to call it, like AI's chipping away into that too. Not necessarily that it's going to take all of the jobs, but it's just that it poses a threat, definitely more than a potential threat. It just is a threat. Is that fair to say? So, just because it's something that isn't completely cold and logical doesn't mean it won't be replaced by AI. But what are the most human types of things in terms of job occupation that you could think of? And in some cases, maybe a solution is building a personal brand. A lot of people might be talking about that. At least in my algorithm, there's stuff, whether it's about like, content creation, so like social media or monetization or whatever the words are to describe doing this kind of thing. If you can build something like yourself that's your thing, then you decide how much of yourself you want to replace or whatever. But it's like, it's your thing. You know what I mean? So it's not as it's not as risky in the same way that working a corporate job is if you build your own thing. But at the same time, there's some other thing that could come out of nowhere and cause great issues in your own little personal business hustle thing that you're doing, content creation or whatever. So like, you never necessarily know. Things can happen. But if you're just relying on like a career job to be quote unquote safe, is it fair to say that as time goes on, the safe job, as it may have been perceived in the past, the career job, the thing that you're doing that you think you're going to be doing for 10 plus years or whatever, is that becoming less and less of a reality because of like the rapid rate of change and advancement that's happening and disrupting a bunch of stuff? So like, is it fair to say that more than ever now there are no guarantees? Not that there, well, to varying degrees in the past maybe there were guarantees, and maybe in some cases there still are now, but is it lessening the amount of guarantee that is slipping away? And so maybe you got to be nimble, flexible, try to figure things out, problem solve, all the buzzwords, right? So one thing personally for myself is I'm kind of done with the general online job application, like the LinkedIn application stuff. Working for someone else to an extent, I'll say it this way because I'm maybe changing my mind or have changed my mind a bit on this. Anyway, is I'm less likely, I think, to want to work for someone that's just like, blank, whatever, blah, 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 company name on LinkedIn, versus somebody I've built a bit more of a relationship with in terms of like talking to them and seeing what they're like. Like, are you willing to like uproot your life? Because I live kind of in the middle of nowhere. So are you willing to like uproot your life and move somewhere like however many hours away in the hopes that you're going to work for this company doing this job that you may like, you may not like, and you don't know much about this, and maybe you will just get replaced in a year, and so you uprooted your life and moved out on a whim, and it's just kind of all for naught. Now, it might not go that way, it might go that way, maybe there's always risks like this involved, but regardless, like doing this for some kind of faceless hiring person, or maybe they have a face online, but anyway, you get what I mean. Doing that versus like building your own thing, or looking into one specific company or business that you really like, building relationships, then seeing if you could work for them. But the difference here is like, it's like the difference between like a super pinpoint targeted job seeking versus like a scattershot applying to 1,200 LinkedIn applications in the hope of getting an interview. You know what I mean? So I'm kind of done with the like bulk job application thing. Is just tiring and like kind of maybe demoralizing, especially. It just seems to be getting worse because like when I got out of college for what I was trying to get involved in, game development, it seemed kind of rough then, or not amazing unless like you had some foot in somewhere, like some foot in the door with somebody or whatever. Again, networking, like kind of what I was talking about before. And so it's like to navigate this world, and then it seems like, based on some stuff that I've seen on the internet, it just seems like it's worse now. Like the job application market in the West is just even more difficult, and not necessarily just games industry, but maybe in general. And like you hear about AI layoffs or automation layoffs or whatever, and like whether it's being replaced by cheap foreign labor, whatever it is. A lot of stuff going on. So anyway, moving right along. So what do we do? So if you could build something yourself, that's probably pretty ideal, but maybe you don't want to do that. Maybe you just want to clock in and clock out. If you are very specific in what you want and you don't want this path of doing your own entrepreneurial thing or online business or social media or content creation, whatever you want to call it. If you don't want to do that, because it's like, oh, that sounds like a lot, or I don't know how to do these things, make content, whatever. If it just doesn't interest you, then okay, now let's think about, okay, in the context of what's available out there, what does interest you? What is something that you'd actually be good at doing, or have kind of a natural ability towards that you could work on and refine and make better? And what are practical steps to trying to get involved there? Because I think as I get older now, I think I realize hopefully more and more, the importance of networking, or like, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Now, obviously, to some degree, what you know matters, and especially what you can do matters, probably. But, like, if you know someone at a company really well and they like you, how much more better are the odds of you getting hired there if they know you and they like you versus if you're just some random guy applying on LinkedIn? Like, just think about it. So it seems like maybe it's not like this for everybody, but at least for me, hopefully the way forward, if I'm not doing my own thing, or maybe I'll also do my own thing and do some work for somebody else, is kind of the, like, picking a specific place, getting to know the people, and trying to prove yourself and work your way in that way, and build relationships, networking, etc. Networking is kind of like maybe a bit of a cringe word to use because maybe it's been so overused in the business bro algorithm or whatever, but it's like just getting to know people and building those friendships. You know what I mean? Like something that's real, or that's hopefully real, like just better than a LinkedIn application, you know, more meaningful or whatever, impactful. So maybe that's a way to go about it. And how do you even start with doing that? Well, whether it's going to certain conferences that companies you might want to work at would attend, whether it's like fitness conferences, whether it's media conferences, business conferences, whatever. And this costs money and time to go to, fair enough. And so if you don't have money and time, then it might take a while to save up for something like this. Maybe there's online conferences you could attend for free or for little cost. And like Facebook groups comes to mind. Now this might also be cringe, but like trying to find online communities that are good and work your way in with meeting people there. So this is not really something that I've done a whole lot of. There was a time like I was trying to get work at this one company, and I spent like a year and a half trying to prove myself. It didn't pan out, at least not yet. And I've kind of just felt led not in that direction anymore, probably fair to say, at least not right now, I think. And that example is more of what I'm talking about, where you're trying to like pick one specific place and get your foot in the door, or like try to impress, or whatever the proper word is. Like you're trying to, you know, network with these people, you know, build on it, and you know, work there, and trying to go through more of like a personal experience type thing, whatever you want to call it, like what I'm talking about. And I'll probably continue to do more that strategy in the future. And in the meantime, I'm just working like a basic normal job. And is that the best strategy? For some people, maybe not. I would really like to build my own thing, because then like you have a lot of freedom. If you have your own thing, at least freedom to varying degrees depending on what it is. But like if you make money online doing this, like you could probably do this from mostly anywhere. And as long as you have like pretty low living expenses, then you might not even need to make all that much. So anyway, I've really rambled on about this topic, but this is just kind of a thing where this is where I'm at right now. Like this is maybe fairly personal in the sense of this is like what I'm working through, at least on some level. And if you are too, maybe I said something helpful, maybe I didn't, but anyway, I'm gonna just say this: don't give up, and that's something maybe I need to hear as well. But you know, let's not give up. Hopefully, let's keep trying to be creative, keep a good mindset, try to do something, because yeah, the economy might suck, but you got to do something, right? At least under the current circumstances. So good luck at doing good out there. Repent and believe on the Lord Jesus Christ. Thank you guys for listening, and have a good day. God bless. If you're interested in joining any of my school communities, currently I have two in the description. Both are free to join, and you could check them out. There are paid options, but you don't have to do that. It's just if you want to. So free to join. One's about cameras. You could learn more about cameras, and then the other one is a weightlifting school community. So if you like Mike Mentzer and high intensity training, That's mainly what it's about. And so feel free to check out those school communities. Again, free to join. Links in description of this video. Thank you guys for watching. Have a good day. God bless.